This is known as an apostolic interregnum.
By directing who will be given the authority of the priesthood, who will hold its offices, and how its rights and powers will be conferred. For example, a person who holds the priesthood is not able to confer his office or authority on another, unless authorized by one who holds the keys. Without that authorization, the ordination would be invalid.
Travis Wayne Goodsell. While getting the Wikipedia page that I knew was on Google, Google said that my searching for criticism of the LDS Church was suspicious activity. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints being the major investor in Google, and thus YouTube, there's a big conflict of interest. So yes, that's a criticism that I don't think is listed in this Wikipedia page that we're going to be going over. So, for those that are brand new, as I caught YouTube censoring my channel using the AI algorithm projection, in their programming. I am limited as to the number of views per video and per hour. So today, or yesterday, Sunday, there was unusual traffic above and beyond what YouTube recommended. And that initially caused them to retaliate, as I had 17 views for 12 to 1, and then they retaliated with 0 from 1 to 2. When I checked later on in the evening, they changed it to 57, somewhere around there, for the 12 to 1, and it was 17 for the 1 to 2. The fact that AI adjusts itself shows that they specifically censor my content. I typically don't get expos to my channel. Occasionally a Nevermo. But those who follow me are no longer Mormon. I think most of them are former Mormons. And as a no longer Mormon, there needs to be some clarification. Because if you say that you're an ex-Mormon, but you were not excommunicated, then you're not an ex-Mormon. Like a date or a spouse, or a boyfriend, girlfriend. That's when you can use former and ex equivalently. But the technical terminology is those who left on their own are former Mormons. Those who were disciplined and left the church. And so I will even include probation or disfellowshipment. You were punished and you left. So you can call yourself an ex, not just for excommunication. But that really doesn't matter in regards to the seriousness of the criticism that we're going over. Mormons who stay Mormon think that they're the chosen ones, that they are faithful, and they didn't cave to the pressures of the world to leave like we did. And so they make all sorts of accusations against us. And they've stalked me. There will be the typical guys who stalk me, who will rush to put a thumbs down. The Strengthening Church Members Committee are forced to watch my videos, to download them into my file number 36434, and then give a report to the top brass. Yeah, folks, they know me. They don't like me. They're pissed because of one of the criticisms is the violent threats by this church. Yep, I know that all too well. And so, because Mormons think that they're the chosen ones, everything they do is righteous. They don't see crime in what they do. They don't see crime in what the church does. They don't see evil in what they do or what the church does. And that is a very dangerous situation. Most of you consider that kind of mentality a cult mentality. It's technically a cult because the church claims that Joseph Smith talked with the dead and looked at rocks in a hat. That's occult stuff. Technicalities. And I don't know if the reason why ex-foes and never-mo's, for the most part, stay away from my channel is that they think I'm Mormon. Seriously? What makes you think I'm Mormon? Seriously? Let's see if I have. I probably don't. I don't. I'd have to go to my YouTube channel to see what my latest videos were. Should go over the titles. Would they be here? Yeah. There we go. So the last 4 that I did. Merry Christmas to Jews during Hanukkah 2025 from LDS Mormon President, Mormon Church President. What makes you think that I support the church on that? Ancient Scripture, Latter Days Prophecies of Joseph Smith and One Mighty and Strong. Yeah, I can see how you might be confused. I can see how Mormons were confused. What the hell is that on your thumbnail picture, Travis? I don't even see Joseph. But believing the lies of Mormonism. That actually had the highest of the top 4, last 4. And to avoid the too frequent repetition of the name Dan, LDS Mormon. LDS Mormon Church calls him Jesus. How is that supporting the church again? Why is there confusion? I do not understand. So, I have been born and raised in the covenant of this church, as Mormons correct me on, so that they can abuse me, saying that I've lost my testimony. No, I've got a testimony, that's why I'm out. Mormons will never understand that, because there's incorrect translations, incorrect interpretations, and incorrect definitions. And it's what Christianity did with Roman Emperor Constantine. Because if you didn't catch on to the Jewish statement, yeah, I'm not a Christian either. I have learned for myself that Christianity, including the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is not true, Mommy. So, as a result, I'm not notable, as there are a list of notables, and they don't have Alyssa on here yet. She just made the world press. And yet, the church's ranking for who is their most wanted apostate, it's because of what they've done to me and what they haven't done to any of you. Just to me. And Tyler Robinson is headed in that direction, being framed for the assassination. And if you didn't see the kill shot, you should. before you criticize me. The kill shot came from that direction. All of you that know the blueprints of the UVU, where's the Luze building that the prosecution said that Tyler Robinson was on the roof without a video camera footage of him with a rifle? Which building? Where is it located? Check it. Came from that direction. C2 vertebrae out the other side of the neck. I saw the footage. I am an eyewitness. There were 3,000 people recording it. So, yeah. Governor Cox, Strengthening Church Members Committee are activating Tyler Robinson with this scam. So, I'm assuming that the majority of critics, because of their criticism, are liberal. That Mormons who stay Mormon are conservative. Which is weird, because political conservatives despise conservative Mormonism. And have respect for those who leave as liberals. It's weird that way. So, I do not see September 6th listed here. Unless some of the names, Lucy Harris, Abner Cole, Eber D. Howell, and Thomas C. Sharp were among those, but those don't look familiar. Gerald and Sandra Tanner, yeah, they're the originals. Mormonism, Shadow and Reality. Richard Abanes, Richard and Joan Osling, that sounds familiar. Fawn Brody, yeah. Jeremy Runnels, yeah. He plagiarized the Tanners. Jeremy, come on. And John Dehlin. Yeah, he doesn't like me because he's a psychologist. Psychologists came from Nazi Germany, and they're thanking their American liberators. They spent their focus on Utah Mormons. That's why there's a whole ton of them. That's why Jody Hildebrandt is in prison. That's why others are in prison. That's why treatment centers have been shut down. That's why the church has the family services. It's because they're all in on psychological manipulation. Thanking their American liberators. Thanking them for shutting down the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thank you. You put us in our place. So, one such putting them in their place by the government is Prop 8. Yeah. The Terminator sued and exposed that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does not have on record an incorporation. Just the corporation of the presiding bishopric, not the church. Because the church got shut down. 1887. They never reincorporated the church. So, public perception, who gives a crap about poll data? Stats. So yeah, in 2011, it was reported by Marlon K. Jensen that there were only 5 million left in the church. And that was about a loss of 10 million. Mormons just up and left. Didn't go to church anymore. Silent protest, which is a common thing in the church that I've witnessed over the decades. Historical criticisms. Polygamy. I have yet to hear any of you ex-fo nevermos point out that Russell Marion Nelson in 2019 ordered the return of polygamy. It was my second ex who pointed it out to me. So I got the video and been doing the videos on it. Mormons are unhappy that I exposed this, but they're not being obedient. I show the text, and they still get mad at me. Mormons all know, ex-foes, we all know that Bruce R. McConkie especially said that in the millennium we'll return to the law of polygamy, section 132. And so, sure enough, 2019, almost as if they knew or were going to be running a test run in 2020 for the millennium. So it's a shame you guys don't follow my channel. 9,000 videos over 9 years after changing the theme. So you're way behind. Oaks got leaked last November in 2024 from 2020, March 14th. Oaks was speaking to the new mission presidents, and one quoted Oaks as he sent out a letter with that quote to the stake presidents and parents of the missionaries, and only one sister missionary at 19 years of age, who was brand new too, posted it on her mission website. And it took 4 years until a Mormon YouTube video maker, creator, found it, passed it on to another YouTube Mormon faithful promoter of the church, and then the Mormon YouTube employee down in Utah County thought he'd show me up, put me in my place, and recommend that video. Oops. Oaks confesses that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is behind all of your sufferings. All of the Armageddon stuff, all of the destructions, the economy collapsing, the government failures and shutdowns. Yeah, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's not just religious freedom that they've been pushing with their exemption clause. So yeah, that's exactly why Nelson changed the law of chastity to include polygamy, and Mormons are not obeying. So you can tease them about that, assuming that I somehow get above and beyond my required limit of views. But this is not a true statement, because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says that it's Joseph who started it, and that Joseph gave us Section 132. The church lies. We all know it lies. We left because of a lie. But for some reason, people believe the church, and obviously polygamy is abhorrent, except for Mormons who stay, as you guys never bothered to learn what the truth was. You never bothered to find the primary source document by Brigham Young with Heber C. Kimball, and I can't remember the other guy, Massey? Something like that. But John D. Lee was the clerk. The temple had been built in December. It was not dedicated until the anniversary of the Illuminati on May 1st. So that pissed off a lot of Mormons that it wasn't dedicated on April 6th. And they left. Brigham's branch off. But in December and into January, especially for the sealings, there were endowments that got started in December. And then Brigham Young did sealings for polygamy in January of 1846, 2 years after Joseph is dead. And they kept a record of this. All of Joseph Smith's marriages were by proxy 2 years after he died. And so all this other stuff, Section 132, journals, even by the women, Fawn Brody, they all lied for Brigham Young. Because the actual documentation did not occur until 1846. And I've got the book. So yeah, Brigham Young. So yes, it's good that we left the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints if it was for polygamy. But they lied to us that it was Joseph. I already knew it anyway, because I'm a Fulmer. Desdemona Fulmer, the church claims, was sealed to Joseph Smith in 1843. Everybody in my family line knows that's a lie. That it was after Joseph was dead, by proxy. And so she was among the initial 23 women. 1846. I got the book. I now know the date. I confirmed that my family was telling the truth, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints lied. There's a Still Mormon channel who focuses on polygamy being a fraud, and it's all Brigham Young. And so I acquired the 1830 Joseph Smith version pictures of him making notations, no polygamy, and then highlighting it in Jacob's version, or Jacob's passage. So that's one of the things that those who get upset with me, even though they're expo, is they insist that Joseph Smith was a polygamist, but they have no evidence. just other people's hearsay. You gotta have the documents, guys. Hearsay is worthless. Especially when it comes from the church's mouth, you can't trust them for anything. And so, as far as you can say, the church practices polygamy. And they're trying to frame other people to justify it. And that is the case. But they're bringing it back because they're causing the end of the world. So, yeah. Teen brides of early Mormon prophets. Joseph Smith Jr., 37. April 1846. And some of them were just made up because there is no record of it. Even Brigham Young didn't seal Joseph Smith to them. They just made up stuff. That's what's listed here, is those extra made up lies. 1890 discontinuance. You mean 1910-ish? It's after the Reed Smoot hearings. But 1887 was when the church got shut down, and it took to 1890. Wilford Woodruff was not the president of the church because they didn't incorporate the church. It's just a religious group. You can't be a president of a group. Next, historical authenticity of LDS scriptures. And so again, everybody thinks that I'm supporting the church. No. I will tell you, yes, the Book of Mormon is true. The Book of Abraham is true. But I will also say the Book of Mormon is not literal history. The Book of Abraham is not literal history. But Joseph Smith translated the Book of Abraham correctly. Joseph Smith did not have anything to do with the translation of the Book of Mormon. See, again, the church lied to us. You believe the most recent lie about a rock and a hat. See, I remember, as a kid growing up, we saw the pictures, saw the videos, Joseph Smith looking at the plates. And then, now all of a sudden there's a rock. Just one. South Park has two, and they don't look anything like the one the church has. Nonetheless, yeah, there's a whole history that you don't know about. You assume the church is telling you the truth, that Joseph Smith translated it by the gift and power of God, and that's why you left. Because it's not historically accurate in numerous ways. Likewise with the Book of Abraham. And as a result, some of the historical natures then have been the cause for your leaving, if it wasn't just the general using a rock and a hat. So the biggest one is that, well, Joseph Smith is a racist because he wrote it, because obviously it isn't true. And so it's not Mormon or Moroni or Nephi who are racist. It's therefore Joseph Smith. Wrong. It's been turned into literal history. That's why you think that. And it's a little more complicated than just give you the answer, because you still might not understand it, but I'll give you a clue again. Remember that Jews part in the beginning? Remember Christianity with Constantine? That first creed turned everything into literal history. And so Brigham Young, turning the Book of Mormon into literal history, is why you believe that there's racism in there, not just the geography. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh. It's 6 o'clock. Don't have any breakfast. I have to settle for a main meal when this video is over. So when you look at it scientifically, then you start to see something else is going on. And I already did that video yesterday. I'm not going to repeat it here for this. Just understand that's why I do the videos, and why the thumbnail picture that you're going, what the hell is this? The Ursa meteor shower is going on right now, ending once the sun comes up. That's why. Signs in the heavens and likeness of things on the earth. And in verse 7 in Joseph Smith translation, Revelation chapter 12. Kind of need to pay attention to what is different, not what is plagiarized, Jeremy. And so, yeah, it's Mormon apologists that talk about Reformed Egyptian and then golden. So let me go over with you how Joseph Smith is not literal history as well, and how the Book of Mormon is based on what Joseph Smith is talking about in the second vision, which is the same, because that's what it's all about for the second vision, is about the Book of Mormon and why we're getting it. So Joseph Smith Sr. was a Master Mason at the Canandaigua Lodge, Ontario, number 23 in western New York, south of the Manchester Farm. And they had the highest rank of the Knights Templar that have the lore of Egyptian gold plates, Solomon's Temple, the New Jerusalem in America, the Holy Grail bloodline. That's why. And thus rocking a hat. You never caught on to that? Joseph Smith takes the plates out of the ground and is able to see the writing on it. That never occurred to you? But again, Joseph Smith had nothing to do with the composition of the Book of Mormon. And so the sword of Laban is also involved here because the Knights Templar have swords. And that has to do with the temple treasury, the Solomon's Temple and the storehouse that was there inside. In the woman's gate courtyard to the right. So Nephi going to get the plates and finds Laban drunk, chops off his head, and then goes and finds Zoram. Zoram takes him to the treasury in the temple. Gets the plates. That's the whole symbolism. It is not literal history. You already know that. There's far more information being given by Joseph Smith than the church will ever admit. They intentionally misfootnoted it. They intentionally call this literal history to divert you away from the Knights Templar knowledge. They don't want you to know. And yet, Heber C. Kimball knew. Check under Masonry. He knew. But he didn't tell us. It's because he's the enemy, remember? 9/11, 1826. Heber C. Kimball was a part of the enemy threat. And why we now have the Book of Mormon. So, all of you who are Sidney Rigdonites, who think that he wrote the Book of Mormon, you are correct. But then you're wrong that it was a fraud. Senior, that's me who figured that one out. Rewrote the 116 pages. So, and there's more to it. Joseph Smith knows the calendar date and clock times of when the attack would take place. And instead, Oakes changed to run a test run. Oh, you bastard. And so with the Book of Abraham, yeah, I've done the videos numerous times showing the pictures to remind people who follow or come late that facsimile number 1 was a solar eclipse on the 21st of August 2017 in Leo. Facsimile number 2 is not just the eye, but it's also an annular eclipse, as well as a woman's womb in Egyptian hieroglyphs. 14th of October 2023 in Virgo at the womb of Bethlehem, Spica. And number 4, the wedding supper feast of the Lamb at the Temple of Zion. Also, Revelation 19, verses 11 and 17. 8 April 2024. And when I found that the parable of the 10 virgins, as Joseph Smith says, is a calendar date and clock times listing, so that we would know when the latter days started, I then recalled from the Book of Abraham that there were 3 virgins offered on the altar. Virgo, solar eclipses, but lunar for women, for religion. Sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood. The parable of the 10 virgins were the lunar eclipses, mixed with the same year where there was a full moon without a lunar eclipse in Virgo. 2 Virgos. And there's only been 5 sets since 2014 to 2025. And so I checked. Sure enough, the first 3 sets, 2014, 2015, 2016. So the very next verse, verse 12, Abraham is now sacrificed on the lion couch, and he refers us to the 21st of August 2017. That's how Joseph Smith translated the Book of Abraham. Again, he tells you, as he now learns that there is calendar dates and clock times in the book of Matthew now, thanks to Daddy teaching him, because this is the plot of the enemy to destroy. The Exodus year, 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem, 597. Church wants to say it's 600. Everybody knows it's not 600, even the church. They purposely put that there because Jesus has to be literal. The enemy is not Christian believers. They are going to destroy Christianity for the abuses they've done. Because they cannot be put to rights by reasoning and teachings, as the Danites say. So they get physical instead. And it's quite an elaborate plot of 200 years, because it was after the War of 1812. That's when they decided to infiltrate America. So a lot of history of the church, as well as America and world history, that you're missing out on if you just rush to the hasty conclusion that the Book of Mormon and the Book of Abraham are just frauds. It's far more complicated as literature. It's very impressive. And I found out because I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. And then the church attacked. They're supposed to be the translators, but they don't even claim the title. They won't even do translations. Benson's official statement says no. And the whole news conned everybody into thinking that the church now allows us to use AI for translation. It's because the church already has it rigged. I did the check on charity. Charity, which is love. And it's not charity. The Bible is not correctly translated. And so that's what the Book of Mormon was doing, was correcting the errors in the Bible. That's why you got to pay attention to what is different. Do not focus on what's the same, Jeremy. So then they go to criticisms of Joseph Smith. 1830s, the church was heavily criticized for Smith's handling of a banking failure. Yeah, that was a Kirtland Safety Society. I just covered that in a bombshell history video. So much stuff here. Yeah, I gotta document stuff so that I have reference materials. I don't memorize. The whole history of the church. I know it step by step, so when somebody comes along and says some crap like this, I can put them in their place. How it led to it, what happened during, and what happened after. Just like a crime scene. And so no, that was the Danites converted by Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball in 1832. The Danites took out loans, didn't pay them back, and this was also the time when the church was now calling the converts to come to Kirtland with the new temple being built. But the converts were converted to Christianity, maliciously on purpose. And so they get there, and they find out there's a temple. They find out that Joseph Smith is a seer, prophet, revelator, and translator. They find out that the Book of Mormon is involved. Christians don't believe in the Book of Mormon. Neither did the Mormons. They thought it was the Church of Jesus Christ. And so when they got to Kirtland and the Danites sabotaged the bank, the Christians threw a fit. And there's the Great Apostasy, as there was a group that formed the old standard Church of Christ, Christianity. That's what they left for. That Joseph Smith is not Christian. Book of Mormon does not make them Christian. Temples do not make them Christian. And therefore they left and formed Christianity. And so, yeah, the new name of the church took out Jesus. Never had it in the first place. But Christ isn't gone. It's now the Church of the Latter-day Saints since 1834. So these new converts that were far away from Joseph are being gathered, and then they're horrified. We were told this was Christian. And they rise up and they attempt to assassinate Joseph and Sidney, and they have to flee into Missouri, into the far west. And so the Danites are left behind, laughing all the way, and take the rest of the Mormons in an exodus to Missouri. And that's when they go into phase 2 of their operation for the Mormon War. It's the Danite War, where all of the great leaders of the church and government here in Utah made their first ancestors' appearance. Right? Former Stewart congressman. He was a senator, wasn't he? And Curtis, he was there. Cox was there. Mendenhall was there. Not just Martin Harris of Oaks. Who's now the leader of the church and is the one who got leaked, saying he's responsible for the test run in 1838 and 1837. All of this was part of their plot, to frame and blame Joseph, get him out of the way, and then Brigham Young took over. There's nowhere in scriptures in 1835, it's Doctrine and Covenants, for him to take over the church. Still to this day, they claim that that's how succession is supposed to be done. That's how Oaks got in. That's how Nelson got in. Monson, all the way back to Brigham. When Nelson's solemn assembly occurred, Irene exposed it as starting with John Taylor. No duh, because it didn't start with Brigham. Brigham is not authorized. And so that's what many who leave the church don't recognize. They know there was a split, but they don't understand that there's a scripture that had to have been followed and it didn't get followed, and therefore all of them are false. Joseph Smith's church died with him. And Emma Smith got stuck with the debt. Brigham Young fled the country with all the loot. So Adam God doctrine, that's a Brigham Young thing. It's amazing how the leaders after the government shutdown decided to change that one too, because it involves Heavenly Father as a polygamist, not just Adam, one of his wives. They can't talk about that anymore, so that's why they gave up on saying that Brigham Young is Adam, because of the polygamy thing connection. Nonetheless, that's why Orson Hyde got bumped down. It's because he signed the affidavit with Thomas B. Marsh. So yeah, that whole thing is a lie, if you didn't know. He didn't get excommunicated for defending his wife's honor. He never got excommunicated legally. Brigham Young did a whole batch of excommunications on my birthday, in 1839 while Joseph was still in Liberty Jail. Joseph never knew of it. He just assumed they all left. So yeah, Brigham Young just sort of kept that a secret. But it got put in Wikipedia. So the Mountain Meadows Massacre, yeah, John D. Lee, Senator Lee's third great-grandfather, who was the clerk for the polygamous wives. And blood atonement, also a Brigham Young thing. But that's why they also were the ones who started the baptisms for the dead, is that Oakes, in his conference talk about the second coming, he says that Jesus is coming to burn people, and then says everybody will be burned and the righteous will be resurrected. Everybody's going to die. So that's where the blood atonement comes from. It's what they are justifying exterminating mankind for. Blood atonement. The world is wicked and must be burned. Temple penalties. Oh, you youngins, you missed out. We all know, in my generation and above, we all know. Yep. That in and of itself, I was freaking out. Going, what the hell am I in? What the hell is this? Parents are here. I now understand my mom. That explains a lot. Explains a lot. She died yesterday as the anniversary. It's 4 years ago. Yeah. And I'm suspicious that the church had a play in that, murdering my mom. Because there was no cause of death listed in her obituary. She just died. And, I mean, yeah, it's during creeping death time, you know, the test run from Exodus. But she sent me a letter in September, and then I didn't hear anything from her. And so that was strange. But then, before the October conference, I had found the secret combination seeking to overthrow the United States of America, and found that the church's spy to get the church's will done was Cleon Skousen's son, Mark Skousen, the firstborn birthright blessing son. And so then conference came, and I did conference videos. This was during the time after YouTube lifted their ban. Bastards. They took advantage of the Biden administration and their purging of social media channels. YouTube jumped on this to attack me because they were saying that I had medical misinformation when I wasn't talking anything about anything medical. It was criticism of the church. You know, like Google says, hey, there's suspicious activity. Prove you're a human when you're going to check on the criticism so that we know who you are. You already know who I am. You know my IP address. You know it's me. Cut it out. Nonetheless. And so after conference, I then found the way to perfection, pages 290 and 291, the plot to overthrow America, in code Jesus is going to do it. Lucifer is going to hand over the keys of government of the United States of America to Jesus. I thought the president had those keys, and technically all three branches, but the church was calling Trump, as he now became president, as Lucifer, and thus Nelson and then Oakes as Jesus. That's how evil these Danites are. And so, yeah, this is what they want covered up. The law of consecration. The kingdom, excuse me, a counter government. Exactly, a coup. That's what this church is all about. Cooing America, framing and blaming Jesus. So yeah, you should have paid more attention. Should have paid more attention. Or at least found the YouTube videos or the online websites of the texts. Exaltation doctrine. We can become gods. But again, literal history, supernatural stuff. No. Nothing supernatural. Brigham Young did all that crap. Christ is merely a king, one who is anointed. Hello. So King David, yeah, the Christ. All the kings of Judah and Israel, Christ. Even those apostate kings of other countries. All pharaohs of Egypt were Christ. Response to abuse allegations. God. Yeah, they will never admit they were wrong. They will never apologize. They will never confess. They will never make restitution. And they will excommunicate you and fire you if necessary, if you work for them. And finances. Yeah, good job. Good job exposing that. And that was just the one source of revenue, guys. Just one. Church has dozens of different sources of revenue. So when Nelson came out in response to the whistleblower of Ensign Peak Advisors over tithing, Nelson confessed, yeah, we do this same pattern for every single source of income. So what is that one pattern? They get the money, in the example, tithing. Tithing may or may not have certain expenditures. They won't let us know, but priestcraft is involved. Because they have other sources of revenue to handle other stuff. The whistleblower pointed out that the total operations of the church is about $5 billion every year. And thus they make more in interest for Ensign Peak Advisors with the tithing. And so we don't need to pay tithing anymore. The church still is collecting money. You know, the giving machines, yeah, that's a source of revenue that they're doing the same pattern with. So it all goes into their Zion's bank account first. 10% then goes to the LLC company. For tithing, it's Ensign Peak Advisors. All the others don't use Ensign Peak Advisors. So when he said that it's 200 billion, that's 10% of the total revenue for tithing. $2 trillion. It only costs $5 billion for the whole operations of the church, which for the most part doesn't get used for that either, because they have the other sources of revenue for that. And so what do they do with all the excess? They're not leaving it in Zion, in Zion's bank. So this is where the Australian press exposed the church on what they do with the excess offshore bank accounts in non-extradition countries. Deutsche Bank, yeah, in the SEC filing for tithing through Ensign Peak Advisors. Deutsche Bank, the bank of choice for terrorists and money laundering of big corporations. So yeah, what the whistleblower caught was money laundering, but that's small scale money laundering. There's bigger money laundering going on, and that's where the church, because they're not doing any of the Armageddon stuff, they're paying people to do it for them. In a major city yet to be determined in Russia. And CARE putting out their statement on their website. They're now a terrorist organization in Florida. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is our biggest funder. As they fund not just the war against Israel, but other Islamic terrorist attacks. As ISIS is a part of these terroristic attacks that are in the news lately, and yeah, all originated with money from the church. It just depends on which source of revenue funded it. It could be tithing, it could be one of the others. So, yeah, the church is sitting on multi-trillions of dollars. All of these other companies that are just barely making trillionaires, church has been multi-trillionaires for a number of years now. That's where they're still conning people on finances. Response to internal dissent. Strengthening Church Members Committee. There's October 6th. D. Michael Quinn. He was only good for the financial books because he stuck to the modern church. Anything from Joseph Smith, he's worthless for. He doesn't have a clue how to do church history research. Nobody does. American Association of University Professors. Oh, yeah. He didn't become an apostle. They chose Cassé instead. And even when Ballard died, they still didn't choose him. He was being groomed for it. But instead, they had a business deal with Saudi Arabia with the princess. So they had to put in the only Saudi Arabian Mormon that we had. Karen! Yep. When you pay attention and you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, when something comes out in the church news, you just put that in where it belongs and you go, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Because nothing is inspired by Jesus, that's for sure. There's the Strengthening Church Members Committee. Church monitors members' critical publications, and a whole lot more. And so, yes, they've recruited students to spy on professors. Bingo. Gotcha. Mormon YouTube employee down in Utah County. Gotcha. They have people on call. Thus why the president is not getting my warnings. There it is right there. The church has insiders everywhere to silence the information. There it is. So yeah, I'm deeply concerned that my mom dying after I found that book. Because they came after me big time for that. That's why I'm living here now. They literally got people to try to murder me and destroy me financially. All to activate me. Activation is a lie. They don't care to activate anybody. They physically punish people for being critical or to not be faithful. That's why I'm doing this video for you guys, in case you didn't know yet, hadn't caught on. They're going to murder everybody, and thus you. They're justifying it by saying you're wicked. So blood atonement. And they're the Strengthening Church Members Committee. That's why I tell those who watch that if you get interviewed by John DeLynn, the Strengthening Church Members Committee are watching him too, and then shortly thereafter the person gets fired. Natasha Helfer, Jeremy Runnels, Little Nemo, those are the three that come to mind offhand. Exmo Lex, she left. Church didn't care anymore about her. But Lissa Grenfell, yeah, they aren't touching her either. She should have been listed #1 after making the worldwide news, getting millions of views on TikTok or whatever it is. And even her YouTube videos are getting hundreds of thousands with the occasional millions. But again, she doesn't know what I know. She only knows the typical stuff that I'm going over with you and correcting. So she, being as popular as she is, she's not likely to listen to anybody else. That tends to be the strategy. And we are all told that as priesthood holders every single Sunday. We have learned by sad experience that it is the nature and disposition of almost all men, as soon as they get a little authority, as they suppose, they begin to exercise unrighteous dominion. And then even women know the part of amen to the priesthood or the authority thereof. It's not just for religion. It's for government, it's for business, anywhere where there's a power structure, and social media created a power structure. So yeah, there was like an awards for some social media channel. I was not invited. I don't know if it, because yesterday the church came out with Instagram posts, and I only found out about it because Oaks put his also on YouTube. So in the church news, I didn't even check the church news. It's Monday. Oh, it's morning. You'll have to excuse me. I've been up all night. I kind of lost track of time. So yeah, the church put their postings about Christmas during Hanukkah in Instagram. The church is all in on Instagram now. They own stock in Instagram. They're pushing the stock on Instagram as a result. YouTube has not been cooperating, even though the church dominates YouTube. And the president is not finding out about it. He is in grave danger. And it's the lesser of two evils, but you know. So, distortion of church history. Yeah, I've already gone over that. B.H. Roberts, he got it wrong. Gerald and Sandra Tanner, they got it wrong. But what they did was awesome. Original source documents. But they put all of their Christian annotation over it. That kind of ruined it. I wanted the original documents. And so the church came out with the original documents and ended Gerald and Sandra Tanner. Sandra was forced to move out of Utah. She lost her home to the ballpark by Gail Miller, who also funded laundering money for the Joseph Smith Papers, because the church wasn't going to pay for it. And that's why it was done, because Gerald and Sandra Tanner put out original source documents. And so Gail Miller, wanting to help the church and get revenge on Sandra, laundered money to the church, who launders money back to them, as they laundered money to themselves the other week. The family donated money to Gail Miller's board of shelters. The money doesn't go to the homeless, it goes to the corporate board. Nobody listens. They laundered money to themselves. But, yeah. And so that's why the church doesn't make any groundbreaking announcements of new changes. They let Mormons believe there's nothing in there, so that you no longer go to the Tanners. You now trust the church. It's a whole bait and switch. But in the Joseph Smith Papers, there are bombshells. Bombshells. Not just 19 July 1840. The Kirtland certificates. Bombshells. Marriages by Joseph Smith. Bombshells. So if you're not going over the Joseph Smith Papers, you are not getting the better understanding of church history. So, yeah, it's just sickening that so much abuse is going on. So, sexuality. I'm willing to bet they're not going to cover prostitution in here. Affirmation. A Mormon LGBT organization and Ed Decker, a critic of the church, both state that the representative of the church, that's just for LGBTQ. And masturbation. Yeah, Little Factory got banned. Interpreted oral sex as constituting an unnatural, impure, or unholy practice. That was what got replaced. It was originally in the temple text. Letter was not distributed to the general membership. This letter also, and so that's it. Oh God. And psychologically unhealthy? No. Psychology is unhealthy. Beam and mote. Projecting. But prostitution, guys. What is prostitution? Paying for sex. Either directly to the woman, typically, sometimes it can be a man, or to the pimp, who has women as slaves for sex. Epstein. It's not just prostitution of underage girls, it was also sex trafficking. Taking them out of the country, out of state. So, marriage is only in the temples. What is the worthiness questions to get into the temple? Number 10, tithing. It is not a donation. It is a forced requirement. You must pay tithing or you cannot go to the temple, which is the other one that I see here at the bottom. I'm going to need to take a station identification break. Prostitution, Mormons. If the women are working and pay tithing, they are prostituting their husbands. And if the husband is also working, he's prostituting his wife. That's the Roman practice, by the way. The Greek practice was just the women. The Jews called it the abomination of desolation. Christians call it the burning by Jesus. So I'll be back. All right. What year is it? Still today, Katie? Yeah, I'll be crashing when I replay the video, despite YouTube's attacks. So, yeah. The thing with LGBTQIAPO+, Canada 2S, is the church is not required to have you as members. They're a religion. They are allowed in the Constitution to discriminate. But they are not to have enforcers physically punishing people. That's where the church goes wrong. Joseph Smith has a section in the Doctrine and Covenants that used to be titled On Government, in which he clarifies the role of religion, that they are not to form a coup to cause Armageddon. I haven't forgotten. It may have been days when I did the first half of this video. And so, like I keep saying, why are people still in the church? You're not going to change the church. You may be able to be better at getting Mormons out of the church, but the leaders of the church, you ain't going to change them. They purposely select who they select to keep the church going. And like I said, they were planning on Armageddon already. There's some overtime that we're going into here because of failures of certain hired persons that is dragging this out. I have a video planned about the different types of exoduses from the Book of Mormon, warning us. And just a quick thing is that there are three main groups the Book of Mormon talks about, and then there's some subgroups that occur. The first is Nephi, separating from his brothers, finally getting to the land of Zion, as Lehi and the crossing of the waters also are Exodus stories. But it's in Zion that Nephi starts writing the record. This is why it's on my mind. How is this going to play out? The second famous one is Ether. There's a full extermination of mankind. Not just getting, there is no getting to Zion. There is no Zion. It's just Ether. And he records the last two people that duke it out until Shiz has his head chopped off and he falls in his gore and then lifts up without a head and then collapses in his gore. a kid's book. And so Ether is writing the record of the people as he's the last human on Earth. That's where I think we're headed. And then the last one, obviously, is Moroni, who sees the utter destruction of Mormons, the people, the religion. They're gone. It's over. He tried to warn. They refused to listen. They're all dead. It is the wicked that run the rest of the world, and they've become savages, doing away with technology, invention, creation. They just become hunters and gatherers in a Stone Age situation. Christianity, when it got started. So, but yeah, the church gets extremist on sex abuse, using psychology, banning all science, especially medical. And it's sad. Nelson was a medical doctor. They have medical doctors still. I think Renland, isn't he a medical doctor? Or did he just work for a medical company? But, yeah, it's extremist sexual abuse. And I've seen the history of this. They got evangelicals to rise up so that the church can hide in the midst and support it in the background, while televangelists became the big deal in the 80s when secret combination emerged with the Scousins. So, yeah, temples, it's not Christian. Mother in heaven, not Christian. Yet, yeah, they got the Jewish groups complaining about baptizing the Holocaust victims. Yeah, the church hates people. I don't understand why people are in the church when you're a hate group that the church hates. The church is still racist. Why are there blacks in the church? The church hates women. Why are women in the church? Women have powers. Women could say, no more, we're out. And their husbands would be forced to go with them. And I don't get it. I don't get it. So, like, LGBTQ, why? Gerald and Sandra Tanner left. I think Gerald was excommunicated, or Sandra was, one of the three of them. And they went and started their own religion. Why do people have to stick with the old that they know is wrong? And I've got that quote made into a pretty picture. Should be in this file now, isn't it? Where are you? What's this? Oh. But you're not. Or did I not get to the pictures? Oh, I didn't. Oops. So, this one. from Matthew 7 or 3 Nephi 14. Again, pay attention to what's different, not what's the same. But the application of Scripture is what's important, and that's why I did it and worded it the way I did. So I'm not talking about fruits and seed, and talking about religion, because that's the whole subject. A religious leader specifically, but I did it for religion. A corrupt religion bringeth forth evil fruit. It's a Captain Obvious, no duh. A corrupt religion cannot bring forth good. It's a simple doctrine. It's true. It's proven itself for millennia. And yet, we'll never convince a Mormon. So, but yeah, the baptisms for the dead, yeah, that's all about their Armageddon secret code. That's why the Danites started talking about it. The endowment ceremony, yeah, there's more to that. The temple ceilings still has women as sex slaves to their husbands. They haven't changed that text. Nobody's ever realized they've been practicing prostitution. So race, yeah, Kwaku, why is he still in the church? Because Mormons befriend him. It's a trap, Kwaku. He was forced to confess on a streaming live debate. And Brigham Young's a racist. And they're still racist, even after 8 June 1978. You tell a Mormon they're wicked and they prove it to you. That has been the case over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And they get violent. Calls for an apology or calls for transparency. It ain't gonna happen. If our government would finally lock them up like they need to, Trump can be the hero, not a zero, a sucker and a loser, handing over everything to the church. And because Trump is going to be taking the credit or the fall for what the church is having him do through this secret combination group. Recent scrutiny and church response, Mitt Romney and his presidential campaign. That's still. I mean, again, Native American people? No. There are saved 2 churches. Church of the Devil, Church of the Lamb. The Book of Mormon is only for Mormons. Hello? The Lamanites are the Danites. They're the ones with dark skin. They're the white supremacist Christian nationalists with black skin. Hilarious! So the Nephites are those who follow the Jewish Christ. In case you forgot the first part of the Book of Mormon. And so, no, it has nothing to do with the Native Americans, has nothing to do with literal history. So in 2 Nephi 29, about the Bible, Gentiles are Christians. Christians created the Bible. It's theirs. They stole the records of the Jews and turned it Christian. Thus, literal history. And so the ones with the hissing book, that's the Book of Mormon. So the house of Israel is Mormons. And then you've got the Jews anciently, not modernly. That the Christians got the Bible from the Jews. It's not theirs. And then the text says that the Lord God is for his ancient covenant people, the Jews, through Mormons. Christians are out of the loop. And so likewise the Jews. But Joseph Smith in Doctrine and Covenants tells the missionaries to go into the synagogues of the Jews, try to convert them. Brigham Young said no. We're now changing it so that when the time of the Gentiles is over, then the Jews. There is going to be no time for the Jews after the destruction of Armageddon. So, yeah, everybody got punked by turning the Book of Mormon literal history. Brigham Young gotcha, and he's laughing in hell. Gender bias and sexism. Yeah, 17th of March, 1842. Joseph Smith makes it very clear. The Relief Society is a priesthood organization for women. And if the women want to have office, the Relief Society presidency is patterned exactly after the Joseph Smith's priesthood. And he goes on and says, if you also want Aaronic priesthood for the women to have deacons and teachers, great. Because Joseph Smith knows that Romans chapter 16, women have priesthood and priesthood office. But Oakes comes out and says, hell no, women. God will never allow it. Well, yeah, you're God. Not the God of Joseph Smith or the Book of Mormon. Why are you still in the church? And so gender minorities, why? The church will never allow you. They will never accept you. You got fooled by psychologists, and then those psychologists are purposely drugging you for the church's punishment. Tyler Robinson is the biggest example of that recently, regardless of whether it's true or not. I don't understand, guys. Why do you want to be abused? The church is not going to change. The laws of the Constitution do not allow the church to change. They are not forced to change. But the church still pushing to violate everybody else's rights. That's what you need to focus on. The crimes of the church. Because when the church commits crimes, they are no longer protected by the Constitution. You know, that religious leader over children who just got busted for child sex abuse. Yeah, he committed crimes. Religion will not protect him in court. He can't use the Jesus told me to do it excuse. It doesn't fly with anybody. So, yeah, sex abuse cover-up. It's not just the Boy Scouts, it's not just all the rapes. It's prostitution that's still ongoing. Nobody sees the sex abuse cover-up because you're supposed to hide it. Not like Islamic women that have to publicly display their sex abuse by their patriarch authority, even when they're in Congress. That's cult Stockholm syndrome. And apologetic responses, ad hominem attacks. We all know this. They are incapable of using logic to defend the church, so they bully and name call. That's the best they got. That's it. That's all. So, yeah, then see also anti-Mormonism. Yeah, what about anti-Mormonism? This is a beam and mote projection created by Mormons in response to criticism of the church. You hate us! You're just saying that because you hate us. I don't hate Mormons. They clearly hate me. But that's what they accuse me of, is hating them so that they can justify hating me. It's a projection. Beam and mote. Remember? Scriptures. So true. It's in the Book of Mormon. So true. So fundamentalists, yeah, they branched off from Brigham Young. After the United States shut it all down, they were pissed with the way the main Brighamite church was running things. But that's another thing, though, is there are other branch-offs back in Joseph Smith's day when he died. This church refuses to acknowledge any of them. If they're mentioned, they're always referred to as the name-calling bullying. That's why Mormons and Mormon apologetics use name-calling and bullying, because the living prophets of Jesus do. I don't know. I gotta find the videos. And the obvious one I've got labeled correctly. I can put that in. I just want to get this over with. The crash is coming. So yes, this is where we're at. Those who are still Mormon, I have no confidence that I'm going to be able to continue to do videos and find the one still left who will wake up and realize that it's all a con. I have no confidence. It is very clear that those who are still Mormon are hardcore, and they are unable of being reached. And so the only people who follow me had already left the church. There is nobody who was, well, Child Faith, yeah, maybe Child Faith, but he's out in Brazil. But yeah, the most of the people who follow, yeah, they already knew the church was wrong. And so I'm helping explain things that the church had covered up and lied about. So, but how and why other ex-foes don't want to listen to me? It's because you're spreading the lies and making them popular. And so when you hear me talk about it, it doesn't sound right to your spiritual witness feelings of faith or doubt promotion. You act like a Mormon. You got to stop that. It's false, remember? So you can't act like a Mormon and now claim you're true by leaving Mormonism. It's not how it works. Seed and fruit. You know them by the fruit. You know the church is false. So why are you emulating them in the doubt promotion extreme? Don't do it. Don't fall for the trap. Because what happens is you doubt the church, and then you end up going and having drunken orgy sex, waking up in some other country with your organs out, and then you go, oh no, the church was true. They told me that this was going to happen to me if I left the church. And then the Saints Unscripted or whoever, will welcome you in. Welcome, prodigal son or daughter. They wait for that. That's what they're all about, is those who left and are coming back because they found out that they were wrong. You should have kept the word of wisdom. Church was true the whole time. Like nobody else has the word of wisdom. It proves the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is true. And that's one of the clips that I was thinking of putting in, is Benson going over the Book of Mormon, saying the Book of Mormon is literal history, or this whole church is a fraud. The critics of the church know this. It's the keystone. You take out the Book of Mormon, the whole church falls. Well, no, it's not the Book of Mormon. It's the interpretation of the Book of Mormon, which is literal history. Yeah, it's not literal history. The church falls. The critics of the church know this. He says enemies of the church, to bully us even further and to get Mormons riled up, going, yeah, everybody's an enemy. But, yeah, and then Hinckley is the one who said the church. Joseph Smith's first vision is literal history, or this whole work is a fraud. Yeah, it is. Because it's not literal history. It's something else. Just like the Book of Mormon. Something else. Just run that simple test to find out if it's true or false. You found out it's false, but you didn't run the test for what the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith are. Brigham Young, false. Yeah. But not the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, because Brigham Young botched the interpretation on purpose as a trap. And both Benson and Hinckley exposed the trap they set for you guys. And you all fell for it. Whether you're in the church still as a hardcore, they called it hardliners in my mission. I already saw them emerging. Or if you left the church. Because you guys get very violent talking about Joseph Smith and his teen girl rape. He didn't do it. Brigham. In fact, Willard Richards is in that very document being sealed to 2 underage sisters. Willard Richards, the one who altered his history. Jesus in the name and turned it into Moroni rather than Nephi, as Joseph Smith had it and published it in 1842. But yeah, that's, I still don't understand why they bothered to publish the Joseph Smith papers. Because they knew there was going to be somebody like me who would go searching through them. They knew. And yet, so, alrighty. So, get something to eat and then crash while I listen to the video. Whether I get to this other video that I told you about, I don't know. But yeah, I see what the plot is and the failures that they've had. They're now trying to shut down Congress by congressmen quitting. Over a dozen have quit. They're out. Not just Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so going back with the test run in 2020 to the current day of what they're doing, you can see they're trying to start a civil war to try to murder Congress. The GOP, Marjorie Taylor Greene, called for a secession from the government. Biden is not our president. And with the failure of that, then they then tried to invest for the next presidential election to do that for 2024. And I even saw the church trying in 2023, not just with October 7th, but there were some other things that they were doing that made me wonder because they tried to finish the Joseph Smith papers in 2023, and it was all done by his death day. And yet, because nothing happened, they rushed. They didn't finish the full typing of the book of the law of Brigham Young. They rushed it out before Thanksgiving in 2023. They were already finishing up the church, the temple, oops. But everything else, they were wrapping up. They were calling it quits. Because of the failure, they then rushed out that book of the law rather than waiting until it got completed to be put in. And it's not Joseph's anyway, it's Brigham Young's, but still. Bombshell video for me, 6-hour video series that Thanksgiving. But nonetheless, they then, with this Trump's second coming, you've got a civil war caused by Trump, sending in ICE, the FBI, the military even, into the streets of America, and he failed. He's lost in court. He allowed courts to happen. He allowed people to complain. He didn't do what he was supposed to do when he took over. And so, yeah, the church had stopped, the whole church. That's why Oaks came out and said, we're not doing temples anymore. Because Trump failed again for October. And so that's why they're now resuming temples in secret in different locations, like the one in Maine that was just announced the other Sunday or so. And so they're now starting to resume young adult devotionals next year, but they don't have speakers planned. See, the first coming youth devotional finally got announced for Christofferson, the brother of a pedophile. Makes sense. And yet it's a recording. So they're not even making public appearances still. They're still doing recordings for stuff. And so, yeah, that's the whole Christmas devotional recording. Because they're anticipating the fall any time now. So it's just, okay, well, as long as it gets dragged out, we'll then continue to do things as normal, but not normally. I pay attention to this stuff, and it's sad nobody else is catching on to what they're up to. And so, yeah, the economic collapse, yeah, on purpose. You destroy the economy, there's going to be a civil war. People are going to rise up. Trump wants war. He's not the peace president. We all know that. Come on, people. And so, yeah, he's dragging it out. He's taunting and teasing Americans by talking about a stimulus from Doggy in the beginning and now the tariffs. No, none of that. Americans are not seeing it. He did the warrior thing again. He's repeating history. But, yeah, the American people are not getting a stimulus like in the test run years. Trump gave money to the people and to big corporations who stole it. And the church was getting tithing from it, even though they weren't supposed to pay tithing on it. And so, yeah, this time, no. The American people are being teased. He teased all this year, yeah, this year you're going to get a stimulus, $2,000, blah, 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 blah. And it's at the end of the year, and now he's saying next year, probably in the summer, maybe at the end of the year, next year. He's dragging it out on purpose. Because he too knows that things are supposed to happen and they're not happening yet. He wants other people to trigger it. He does not want to be responsible for it. That's what Putin does. He has not done a full invasion of Europe yet. He's taunting them with drones just flying around so that European and NATO allies start the attack so that Putin can claim to be the victim. He's already declared war, guys. Get him. Crush him like the grapes of wrath. Sending out his agents to steal my Paleo-Hebrew research when all he wanted to know was, what the hell is the Zay? You just had to ask. God, instead you attack Ukraine on my daughter's birthday, which was also the anniversary of when I served the church. Come on, Putin. I thought you were better than that. And so, yeah, Congress is now quitting to try to shut down the federal government. All of this is right there in the Book of Mormon, guys. It is not magic. It is not witchcraft. It's not a rock and a hat. William Morgan got a hold of the playbook for the latter days. And he was there with Joseph Smith Sr. in Canandaigua Lodge, working on it. That's why Sr. had to rewrite the 116 pages, because he knew nobody else. And he was the master mason, so he's responsible. And so, yeah, he set up his son, his only begotten son, who was murdered by Mormons. Not Jesus. So yeah, it's wild stuff. So yeah, threats of war. Trying to get Venezuelans, Islamists to rise up in America, and they're just not doing it. Not doing it. Ilhan Omar, she should have been in Guantanamo by now, but Trump isn't doing it. He's purposely delaying things. And so that's why the church knows it's over, but it's being delayed. Because Oaks got leaked by a little sister 19-year-old missionary heretic. So yeah, I want to save you guys too, even though probably only the Strengthening Church Members Committee are listening right now. They will never confess. They are the hardcore. They think that the church is going to reward them, that the devil will support his own. They never learn. Never, ever learn. So, yeah, very weird phenomenon. KUTV2. YouTube is doing this recently, that refuse to have recommendation videos after you watch a video. KUTV2 got a blank last night when I was going over the news. But all the rest of the news locally, yeah, they all had it. There's certain channels also that just blank. YouTube just says bleep you. We're not recommending a video for this content. But it's KUTV2. Oh, it's not KSL. But ABC4, they're the new Fox 13. Fox 13 has been threatened by the church as KSL has stolen all their employees. Dear God. So yeah, I noticed that the one woman was just filling in for vacation time for people. They stole her from Fox. They only used her for vacation times. Like Garna Mejia. Dear God, guys. She's a far better reporter. Dear God, the abuse that they do. And Mormons just go along because the church is true. I had the feeling. Guess it has to be true somehow. Leave! We need to get you guys to safety. In case you hadn't figured out, I'm the only one who caught on to all this. I know how to save everybody, but ether, that's what we're looking at. Not just Moroni. There will be no Nephi scenario.